Okay, so today we're going to be adding decimals. More specifically, we're going to be using a concrete model to represent how to add decimals. And that concrete model is going to be our base 10 blocks. And you can see I have them over here to the right-hand side. So starting off with a flat, this is going to represent one whole. Then we have a rod, okay, which is 10 little cubes put together, is going to represent 1/10 or 1/10 as a fraction, which equals 0.1 as a decimal. Now the reason that this is 1/10 is because, well, in our flat there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 whole pieces, and this just represents one out of those 10 pieces. Then we have a cube, which is going to represent 1/100th, so 1/100 as a fraction, which equals 0.01 as a decimal. Now, this little cube here represents this little cube inside my flat because that's one out of the total 100 total cubes in my flat. So now that we've defined our base 10 blocks, we're going to represent our add-ins using the model. So starting with 3 and 1500ths, I'm going to look at my whole number first, and I can see here that I have 3 wholes. So that means I need 3 flats. So here's 1, 2, and 3. Then I have 1/10, so that means I just need one rod to represent 1/10. And I have 5/100ths, so that means I need 5 of my little cubes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So right here, models with 3 and 1500ths would look like using our base 10 blocks. Now let's do the same thing for 1 and 2500ths. So starting with my whole numbers, I have one whole, so that means I need one flat. Here's one flat. Oop, oh no. Here we go, that's better. I have 2/10ths, so that means I need 2 rods this time. 1, 2. And again, I actually have 5/100ths, so I'm just going to copy and paste from up there. Okay, so here, this model now represents 1 and 2500ths. So here is my combined total of both of my add-ins. So let's actually make this into a little addition problem here. Let's just add a plus sign. Now, what I want to do with my base 10 blocks is combine all of my matching blocks, and that will give me the sum of my 2 add-ins. So I can easily see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. So let's get 4 holes down below. There's 3, 4. Okay. I have 3 rods, which would be 3/10ths. So here's 2. Let's get that third one. So here's 3/10ths. And now I have 5/100ths up top, and I have 5/100ths below. Now, I want you to take notice here. I have I have 10/100ths. Well, what I can do is when I'm using base 10 blocks is I want to think of groups of 10. So I can exchange my 10/100ths for 1 rod. So let's just get rid of these guys here. And let's add 1 more rod. Okay, so now this picture represents the sum of the 2 add-ins. So I can visually see that I have 4 wholes. Just get a decimal point in here to show our place value. I have 4/10, so let's get another 4. And I don't have any hundreds because we exchanged those. So here my sum is 4 and 4/10. So this is pretty easy to do when you have a nice visual, especially using our base 10 blocks, which I really like. So let's see if we can do this now algebraically. So let's scrap our photo and see if we get the same answer without our blocks. Okay, so we have 3 and 1500s plus 1 and 2500s. So conveniently, I happen to have the same number of digits for both of these add-ins. However, that will not always be the case. But what you want to keep in mind is that when we were combining our blocks that were the same, we were really adding the numbers in the same place value. So we kept all of our hundreds together, we kept all of our tenths together, and we kept all of our wholes together. So that's why we keep our place values in line when we add and subtract decimals. So, starting with our smallest piece, which is our hundredths, I have 500s plus 500ths, and that gave us a total of 10 hundredths. And we saw before that we were able to exchange that for a rod. So we really ended up with 0 hundredths. So let's just pop a 0 right here. Okay? Then we exchange those for a rod, and that gave us a total of 4/10. Now I just want to carry the 1 up here because technically what we exchanged it for was 1/10, and we had 0 hundredths. So that's why that works. And then we added our whole pieces together, and I had 4 wholes. So once again, I can see that when I add 3 and 1500ths plus 1 and 2500ths, I get a sum of 4 and 4.